Well, when you think about illegal immigration in the United States, you likely think of the images of illegals jumping the border fence and coming across the southern border. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's what Fox News will show you on television. But it's much darker. It's much more dastardly. And it's all been planned. And one of the men who's been responsible for educating all of us about what's actually happening at the southern border and how it's affecting the United States of America is a man by the name of J.J. Carrell. He spent 24 years in the U.S. Customs and Border Protection as a supervisor, and now is on a mission with his new documentary, This is Treason, to educate all of us about how this is treason, what is happening to the United States of America. And JJ is in our studio today, and we welcome him here to Redacted Conversation. JJ, great to have you here, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me and allowing us to talk about this in a long form and be in studio. So I'm excited about telling you about what we've been doing on this documentary.
It's been a real pleasure, and I've been watching your journey as you're building this documentary over the course of many, many months, and all of the different layers which have taken you to different parts of the United States. Of course, you were stationed largely in San Diego. You were at the southern border for a long time. But that's just one piece of this story, isn't it?
It is, and I'm glad your introduction was perfect, because the documentary is, in the beginning when I started this and made this agreement with Ryan Madden, my business partner, is I said, I want you to take the lens and I want to show quickly what's happening on the border, because that's important. The invasion is important. But what's never shown is by taking the camera north and showing you what the manifestation of all of, and I believe it's treason, and I'm going to take you on a journey to prove it, what this treason, this intentional strategic invasion, what does that look like in America? And we went out into a journey for a couple months, nonstop filming, to uncover what is that? It's crime, child sex trafficking, human bondage, slavery, economic slavery. And it just goes on and on and on. And when I first started, Clayton, when I first flew, I'll never forget, I'm flying back to San Diego, where I spent 24 years in the Border Patrol, and I worked all the way, the Arizona corridor as well. But I'm flying there and I'm thinking, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what the documentary is about. I have a very clear vision of what I want it to be. The very next day, I remember telling Ryan as we're driving home after a long night of filming, I said, everything we thought is changed completely. This is beyond anything that I even could have imagined after 24 years. That says a lot, because between my 24 years in the Border Patrol and when I started doing this documentary, I wrote a very, I think, very impactful book. It was very successful. So it wasn't like I was disengaged. It was just about a year from the time I wrote my book till I started going to the documentary to go back there. And when I went back, I was shocked.
So the book is called Invaded. It's an excellent book. I encourage everyone to pick it up. But what happened then? When you said that to Ryan, what did you think you were going to see? And then what did you see?
When I left the United States Border Patrol and when I wrote the book, my last year in the United States Border Patrol was Joe Biden's first year. So I saw everything that was happening. So I saw all the NGOs caravanning all the illegals up to the border. It was clunky. The NGOs weren't funded correctly. They didn't know what they were doing. Once those millions of illegal aliens came onto our border, the Border Patrol did not have the facilities. They didn't have the streamlined procedures, because of the real law was the obstacle. The policies and law would not allow us just to release people. So they had to make new mechanisms to allow that to happen. Once we released them to NGOs, and it was clunky, meaning they didn't know where to take them, how they're going to do it, how they're getting the funding. They weren't funded correctly. But when I went back, Clayton, I went back to film the documentary after a year being away from doing research and interviewing people for my book. I saw the most well-oiled, well-funded, most efficient machine that I have ever witnessed in immigration, ever. The flow to the border was seamless. The processing was streamlined so much that they were bringing people in and within minutes getting them out. Minutes, not hours and days. Minutes. Process, get out, you're released. NGOs were sitting there waiting, because for each person to come across, each person we're going to give to the NGOs is thousands of dollars. Could you imagine if you ran a business and you didn't have to do anything for the business? You just stood on a street corner and people gave you thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars every day. That's what's happening. So when you think of what the mechanism must be in place to move 12 million people from the border into the interior United States. There's pathways created. There's a mechanism, and I believe it's a military-style invasion.
So it's totally coordinated. It's planned and
Yes.
it's orchestrated. So this is not happenstance. Imagine if they would put all of those resources, flip them the opposite way, right? The speed, the rapidity of removing people from the United States, securing the border. Instead, it's the exact opposite. And it's
Yes.
just wide open and facilitating the flood of individuals into the United States.
Yes, and then I knew that this was, in the title of my book, The Intentional Destruction of the American Immigration System. If I would go back in time knowing what I knew before I wrote the book, I would have changed the byline. It would have been the intentional destruction of America through illegal immigration. Because as I've been going through this journey, and things, revelations come to you because you're constantly thinking, critically thinking of what I'm filming. How am I going to articulate? What the hell did I just see? Who the hell did I just interview that told me X, Y, and Z? Detention camps in America, child sex trafficking, people that are inside the belly of the beast with NGOs. And I'm stunned. But when you look at it, the revelation that I had was this had to have the decision to use illegal immigration as the vehicle to destroy America was a intentional and purposeful decision, meaning prior to Joe Biden being sworn into office, they had to have had meetings at the highest level of government, sitting around a room like this and having open discussions. What are we doing? How are we going to do this? And there had to have been agreement. It's illegal immigration. That's how we're going to fundamentally transform America. How do I know that? Is because I believe strongly in listening to their words and then looking at their actions. Day one, Joe Biden signs 94 executive orders, obliterating every policy that Donald J. Trump had in place that provided the most secure border in the history of the United States. Let's say you hate whoever the opponent you beat, but he was the president before you, but he had something that was working. Let's say homelessness. I'm sure I don't agree with the left on homelessness and how we should do it. But what if they came up with a solution that was, oh my God, it's amazing. Why would I come in and dismantle all the programs? I would be like, this man did something amazing with homelessness. It's working. We're going to keep going down this track. I may tweak it, but this man deserves credit. We were arresting 500 to 600 people a day on a 2,000-mile southern border, a 5,400-mile on the northern border, and our coastlines. And ICE was deporting everybody. Why would you not continue on that? Why would you not continue to build the wall? Why would you not continue the policies to make Central America and Mexico bend the knee to ensure no caravans came up? But you did the 180-degree change and just said, no, we're doing everything different. In fact, we're stopping everything you did. So you can't make that bad of a decision. It's intentional. You strategically made the decision to sign 94 executive orders, destroying it. And then people need to understand, I'd like your audience to understand, his first year, he signed 296 executive orders on immigration. And It laid the foundation to what we're witnessing today.
So what was the moment for you in the Border Protection Agency when you decided, I'm out, I can't do this anymore, under Biden?
Okay, under Biden, when Donald Trump, he didn't lose the election. And I'm not speaking for Redacted, this is just me. There's no way he lost the election. So when I saw them put Biden in, and then I saw the caravans coming up with "We Love Biden" t-shirts, I knew. And then once we started releasing, I was in an interior station that does highway interdiction for human smuggling and narcotic smuggling. We were releasing everyone to the NGOs. Our cells went from nobody in them. Like we would catch narcotic loads, process them, put them into Metropolitan Correction Facility, federal facility, or state facility, and we would just prosecute them and go. I went from that to having 200 people in my cells from multiple nations, and our cells held 150 people, but I had 200 in there. And then I saw the NGOs and I saw the directives coming down from D.C. because I was deputy patrol agent in charge. So I would see all the stuff coming from D.C. down to sector and push down to the stations. And it was release everyone. And I knew, and I had 24 years in. I would have loved to have stayed another 3 or 4 years. If Donald Trump was president, I would have stayed. I was in line to at least move up at least 2 more spots in my career, which would have been huge. That was my goal when I started. I wanted to be the patrol agent in charge. I wanted to run my own station. I came up to second in charge of a station. But there was no way, Clayton, I was going to stay. I could not. And the way that I felt, Clayton, and it's the way the Border Patrol agents feel now, is I felt I have done 24 years of fighting. Outside of the last 2 years of President Trump, I was fighting my own government to do my job all the time, hamstrung. And I was tired. I'll be honest. I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. This treason that he's doing, I am not going to follow those unconstitutional orders. I know how I'm wired. I will do everything up to sabotaging what they're going to make me do, and they're going to fire me. So either I do the honorable thing and go ahead and just punch out and begin my retirement. And that's what made me make my final decision. And some people say, well, you should have stayed and fought. No, I knew instinctively there was something else for me to do, and I didn't know what that was. But fighting that, I've been banging my head against the wall for 22 out of my 24 years. And why I say the 22 years is people say, well, you were there with Trump for 4 years. Yes, but you had Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell for the first 2 years, sabotaged everything that he wanted to do, everything. Could not build a wall. And why I'm so angry when I start talking about the wall is because those traitors bastards, would not fund Donald Trump's border wall. They gave $4 trillion for the Middle East wars. They gave right now $200 billion to Ukraine, but they couldn't spend 5, 10, 15 billion for a wall. And why is that so important to me? Is because you don't understand. When you have no barrier, the smugglers can stand on top of the fence, the border fence, the meager border fence, and hurl rocks at us, shoot us, come across the fence easier and stab us, fight us, sue us. So I had friends that had their heads caved in. I had friends that committed suicide. I had friends that got medically retired because those leaders of our federal Republican government would not do their job, would not provide me the resources to secure a border. So when I say it's a uniparty, I have anger for both parties because I witnessed it. My career spanned President Clinton all the way to Joe Biden. I've seen it all, man. I know exactly what they're doing to destroy America and how they're using the DHS policies and laws to circumvent constitutional laws. Everything they're doing, and let me be as clear as I can, everything they are doing is against the law, and I can prove it. Everything. 96 and a half years, meaning the 100 years of the United States Border Patrol, the last 3.5 years under Biden, we never did anything that we're doing today. Not one thing. And I tell people all the time, let me give you, because people push back and say, well, give me an example. Okay, let me give you the best example I can give you. In the Immigration Nationality Act, the INA, it controls all the immigration laws. I studied it, I know it at the back of my hand. It is against the law to release illegal aliens into America. It's against the law. How many illegal aliens did I release from the border in my whole 24-year career? Tens of thousands of people arrested. Zero. Because it's against the law.
Right.
And that's the difference. And under Joe Biden, he has released anywhere from 95 to 97% of the 12 million that he's arrested. 12 million. He's going to hit 4 million this year. 4 million. We never saw this. Never. So
what are your friends in the Border Protection Agency saying to you now? You talking to them, they're still there. You've been on this tour going around and talking to them and seeing the different aspects of this across the country who are still there. Maybe they were young. They were 15 years in, 10 years in. They're still there. What are they saying about having to basically break the law every day?
Well, this is a big topic because I get asked this quite a bit. They're following unconstitutional order. When are they going to stand up and say, I'm not doing it? And that was one of the questions I asked somebody that worked for me. He's my trainee, moved up the ranks, and he is, I would consider, a great agent. And I asked him that when I went back to San Diego. I said, tell me how you're doing this. And he said, here, and what he said stunned me because I never heard this word, this adjective used in law enforcement. He says, JJ, we're all numb. At first, we were raging mad and we were fighting back and we were doing everything we can. However, everyone hates us. Our own government hates us. They call us vile names, Nazis. They call us racist, xenophobes. The American public's angry at us for what we're doing. Our own leadership is sabotaging us. And he said, we're numb. It's almost as if, he said, I said, describe what a day at work is. My day at work used to be laughter all day, because we were with our buddies and we laughed and we did our jobs and it was camaraderie and we loved being with each other. He says, we come to work, we don't even talk. We just go through the motions and we get the hell out of there as fast as we can. Ugh. That's not good for America.
No, how is that sustainable?
It's not. And you're looking at the enrollment in the United States Border Patrol. You are at the height of it is 21,000 agents. I still think that's too low, but we had 21,000. Now we have broke the barrier of 15,000. We're now into 14,000 plus agents.
Jeez. And
they can't hire anybody. They're putting $30,000 sign-in bonuses for people to join, and everyone's like, "Are you insane? I'm not doing that." They talk to agents, and agents are like, "Are you crazy? I wouldn't do this. I cannot wait to get out." So you have a large segment of the Border Patrol population that is right up on that 20-year mark. And once they hit that 20-year mark, then it's go time. Then it just becomes, how long can they withstand this before they punch out?
Right.
And when they do that, so let's say we get down to 13,000 agents, 12,000. Who's going to secure the border when Donald Trump? And I tell people this. Agents call me and we talk, and I try to talk them off the ledge. And I say, you know what's amazing? If you hold on for 6 more months, 7 more months, you will have the greatest job in all law enforcement, because you are going to go nonstop. Look at what the GOP just put out, their plank, their 20 things, 25 things. I think it was number 2. They will build the world's largest deportation force. That was number 2 on the whole list of what we're going to do.
Right.
So they're going to need contractors. They're going to contract out because they don't have enough people. There's 45 million illegal aliens in America. By the time Trump gets in office, which after this assassination attempt, he's getting in the office, 50 million illegal aliens will be inside the United States of America. How do you move 50 million? How do you move 50 million remote controls?
Yeah.
Not people that don't want to go.
I have a hard enough time trying to put 3 kids to sleep at night. I mean, how is that? You have 21,000 agents dwindling down, many of them looking to retire or get out.
Yes.
So how do the Republicans manage to pull this off, especially when you talk about the uniparty? I think that's the undercurrent of all of this, right? Which is President Trump can, of course, want to move in that direction. He can surround himself with like-minded individuals, but you've got this like immovable force of the uniparty. And maybe through executive action, he can do some of this, but he's going to need the manpower. And I've been thinking about this. ICE going door to door, making arrests. I know that the Democrats are going to go wall-to-wall coverage. MSNBC, CNN, they're going to show jackboots, kicking indoors, and they're going to say it's Trump's Gestapo. They're going to label it that way. And I know that that's coming. That's how they're going to paint it, and they think they need to be strong about it. But how are they going to marshal the manpower to do something like this?
I think, let's say 50 million. That's a round number, okay? But I believe that's the true number. I think when he tells everyone to get out, I think a large segment of that population, maybe half, are going to leave. Okay?
Like, here's your opportunity.
You got to get out.
Get out.
If you don't, we're going to tag you, and you're never coming back to America no matter what. Marital documents to come in, forbidden. You're not coming. You have kids here. It doesn't matter. You're never coming back. Never. And they'll leave. How do I know this is going to happen? Is because it's already been done. Eisenhower did this in Operation Wetback. 1.2, 1.4 million illegal aliens from Mexico and Central America left voluntarily.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, this is not something that has never been done. That's the beauty of it. We've already done it. Donald Trump, first day in office, put pressure back on the Northern Triangle and Mexico nations and say, shut it down. If you don't shut it down, the caravans and people coming up, you get no foreign aid, you're out, done. And they'll bend the knee like they did. Donald Trump will else turn around and he'll hire people like Tom Homan, who does not care. He does not care about Congress or their feelings. He's going to get an edict from the president. He's going to enforce it. I know he is. I don't know if he's going to be the ICE director or head of DHS. I don't know. But he's going to one of those two. And then he's going to go and then you have 25 million left. You have, and we'll go down these numbers, you have hundreds of thousands of terrorists. You have over 100,000 identified PLA soldiers in America. You have roaming gangs of Venezuelans. Insane asylums have been released. You have gang members all over America, millions. You are going to have to locate them and extract them from our nation. And it is going to be a bloodbath.
The documentary, This Is Treason, is set to come out this fall. Very excited to see this. And I've been watching, of course, and you've been kind enough to provide dispatches, you and Ryan, as you've been going across the country. There's been multiple ladders of this, or layers, I should say. I think of it like a giant cake, different pieces of this. So maybe you can take me through a few of the pieces. You started this journey, I think, in San Diego, back at your old operations center there at the border, to see how the deterioration process was. Can you walk me through some of the different steps of the documentary, like where you've gone? And I know yesterday, the reason you're here, I mean, you just had some unbelievable conversations that I want to get to as well. So maybe kind of start at the beginning.
So when we went to San Diego, we went and saw the invasion, and we saw hundreds of people living on our side of the border, just living there, campfires, food, eating. Where I patrolled 3.5 years ago. That's where I worked. Now they're just living there, and they looked at me as if like, what are you doing here? We own this, get out. That was jarring. But what began to change is when I interviewed an individual in DHS that was working in DC, that was cutting the checks to the NGOs, writing the electronic fund transfers to the NGOs in the amounts of money that they were giving. One of the largest checks that this individual wrote was $600 million for a couple months. And talking about how the NGOs, and the quote that he gave me, he said, JJ, he says, listen, I don't think you're understanding what's happened in the last year that you've not been here. He said, the government does not run the NGOs, JJ. The NGOs run the government. The NGOs tell us how much we're going to pay them. They tell us when they're going to pick people up and where they're going to release them. And if they do release them, they're not going to tell us where they go. And they are running everything. And I said, well, how is that? How is that possible? And he says, because they being the government, has created the world's largest invasion, and it's chaotic and it's emergency. So we're just paying them whatever, because he said, without the NGOs, we can't move the bodies. We call them bodies, the smuggled people off the border. And when you can't move them off the border, it becomes a humanitarian crisis, and the media attacks it. Vis-a-vis Eagle Pass, 15,000 people. San Diego, 10,000 people live. 2,000 Middle Eastern adult military-age men living on our side of the border. 2,000. They can't get them out, because every time they would move that sand pile, more sand would pour in.
Jeez.
So when I heard that, I remember that was the moment that I knew, okay, this is bigger than what I understood, and everything is going to be changed. And then as we've gone through, we went from San Diego, and I told Ryan, we're going to go from San Diego to Chicago. And I remember him asking, why are we going to Chicago?
Yeah.
Why
seems like it's so far away.
Right?
Yeah.
I said, because this is ground zero of everything that's happened. All my reading, everything that I'm learning, this is where it's going to explode. And we went down into Chicago.
Were you right?
I was 100% correct. And Ryan's incredible to work with, and he's like, this is exactly what we should do. So as we went to Chicago, down to Texas, Arizona, back up to the Northeast corridor, and everywhere in between. But we went to Chicago, and what was stunning to me, Clayton, is through some contacts, they said, you need to go down the South Side. Because I said, yeah, I need to get down on the South, which is the notorious gang-ridden, had 100 people shot over 4th of July weekend. And they said, I have people that will allow you to go down there and be safe. I said, okay, I'm going to go down there. Why did I go down the South Side? Because the majority group of illegal aliens in Chicago are the Venezuelans. And the Venezuelan gangs are proliferating and growing and growing and growing, and they're pushing up onto the Chicago gangs. And there's going to be a war. So I went down there because I knew that Chicago has already spent $3 billion+ on illegals in Chicago. In
what capacity? Providing services?
Yes, housing, medical, school, food, clothes, everything that you need to survive. But you have a city that's in decay.
Yeah, last weekend there was 100 people shot in Chicago.
Yes.
So I'm glad they were able to find $4 billion to help illegal immigrants.
Well, when you look at when we talk numbers like this, 3 billion, 4 billion, when you understand and you physically see the manifestation of that spending and the manifestation of taking money from U.S. citizens that are on the lowest economic ladder, lowest economic rung in society, it's shocking. Let me give you an example of what that looked like. We went to where all the illegal aliens that fly in or get busted in Chicago go to a transit area where they kind of tag them. And they say, okay, you're going to go here on the south side, you're going to go to this shelter, you're going to that shelter. I want you to think of giant wedding tents, like bright white wedding tents.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Clayton, beautiful. With beautiful colored signs saying ropa, which means clothes, and food, comida, food, and all this Spanish signs and stuff, beautifully displayed. They get pushed through there, get clothing, food, everything, and as they wait to be transported to where they go, they have staging buses, they call them waiting buses, beautifully clean city buses where they can go on to make sure they're not cold or hot when they eat their meals. 200 yards away, Clayton, is a tent city encampment of homeless Americans. To say that it's squalor would be an understatement. I walked in with a suit like this because I'm doing interviews, and I walked through and I came out and I smelled of urine and feces.
Ugh.
Everyone there is drug addicts, obviously homeless, dirty, mental illness, and I'm talking to them, and they're angry. And I'm like, what are you angry about? They're like, you don't know what's going on down there? I go, yes, I saw that. I said, okay, give me a story. Tell me why you're so angry. Well, in the winter, we're freezing to death and our fingers and our toes are getting frostbitten, and we're walking down there to get on the buses to warm up, and we look up in the buses, and it's all the illegal aliens eating their food, warm.
In the buses?
Yes. And you've been to Chicago. The wind is blowing, whipping through there. I'm freezing to death. It's below zero, and I'm knocking on the door. Please let me in. And the bus driver's like, no, and he's yelling through the glass. Only the migrants allowed.
So only if you're from another country and you're here illegally.
Yes, you people, you disgusting Americans, you go and freeze to death and die. That's what they did. And then you go 1 block or 2 blocks south of the transit area, and then you end up in where the DOJ building, Department of Justice building, and the Senator's building is, overlooks this street. And on this street is a club called the Standard Club, and they spent tens of millions of dollars renovating the Standard Club to house 1,200 illegal aliens, all military-age men. And they have knife fights, machete fights in the street. They're selling drugs. They're doing prostitution. They're driving brand new cars with no license plates. But Americans can't go in there. I tried to walk into the lobby, and I was accosted immediately. Get out, screaming at me. I'm like, hold on a second. I'm just in the lobby. And I look around and I go, there's metal detectors in the lobby. You have to go through metal detectors. And then no one was allowed in unless you were illegal alien. As they're yelling at me, 5 or 6 military-age men, Venezuelans, walk right in, right around and gone. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, I paid for this. And as I was walking in, I was like, there's a young man who's about 27 years old, obviously mentally ill, homeless, beard, dirty. He can't get in there, Clayton. He can't get in that newly renovated 12. You know how much money it costs to renovate something and build 1,200 rooms with bathrooms, kitchens, because they're feeding them 3 square meals a day in there.
Right. Trump does, I'm sure, building hotels to know the size and scale of an operation like that.
But the DOJ is looking down on the street, and there's memos, there's emails talking to people in the DOJ. Don't go down that street. Don't get involved in it. They're looking at knife fights. The day after we left, there was a giant Venezuelan gang fight using machetes and big long arm swords. But this is happening. But as I'm speaking, Clayton, in Chicago, to politicians, pastors, gang members, men that were the founding fathers of the black disciples. So I'm talking like the major gangs, all black residents, highly educated to no education. And they all individually interviewed, not knowing who I'm interviewing, they were using the same verbiage, the same terminology, which I found strange. They were angry. They were humiliated. They're frustrated. They feel like they're being replaced. And the last thing, the adjective they used or the way they describe their life is, we're going to war. Pastors are telling me we're going to war. And I'm like, okay, hold on. War encompasses a lot. And they're like, yes, I know it does. But they're paying Venezuelan illegal aliens $9,000 a month to live in our homes that they just kicked us out of. And if you've been down to Southside, Ryan and I, we drove into Southside, and it was like we just traveled into another nation. That's not America, Clayton. That's and maybe, and I need to say this out loud because it's important. I came from the view of, well, they deserve it. They voted for him.
Yeah.
We keep giving them money, and every person told me to a man, and it was powerful the way they said it. They said, we didn't vote for them. They get placed in there. And then they said, as we're outside, I'm looking at there's no businesses. Almost every other house is dilapidated. And the ones they're living in, you and I would never allow our families to live in there. And they asked me, oh, you think we're getting money. Look around, JJ. Where's all the money?
Right.
And I went, you know what? That's a damn good point. And I'm corrected because I'm looking around. There ain't no money. I'm driving down the street and I have to get my rental car realigned because the steering column is almost about to fly off because the whole roads are shambled and people are killing each other. And they say, we live in desperate times here. There is no money. There's no one helping us. But we see illegal aliens coming in and renting our places, having brand new cars, food, new clothes. Their kids are going to school. And here's something that's not a side note because it's very important to understand. One of the politicians in the GOP, one of the only politicians in the GOP in Chicago, said to me, this has to be 6 weeks ago, so about 2 months ago, Mayor Johnson came out and said, we Chicago have the ability to bring in 700,000 more migrants. And I'm like, wait a minute, Johnson, you have room for 11,000 homeless shelters and you're evicting people. And this politician said to me, and it was very profound, he says, do you know how many black residents we have in Chicago? And I said, well, I think you have, over 1 million, 1.5 million. He goes, no, the numbers have dwindled. There's a reverse migration because it used to be Southern African-American black residents and citizens moved to Chicago for opportunity. Now they're all leaving. And he goes, you know what the number is, JJ? I said, no, I don't. He said 700. 700,000. He goes, do you think that's coincidental? That he says he's going to bring in 700,000 and whereas only 700,000 of us, they're replacing us and we all know it. And everyone admitted to it. Everyone in this conglomerate of people that I was speaking to that didn't know each other. And then I sat down and this was shocking. And rarely I'm shocked. And you can see it in the interview where you can see my face kind of like, what did you just say? Is a woman her specialty is education, all education. And she said to me, talking about illegal immigrants, she says, do you know what the population of school children are in Chicago? I said, I do not know. And she says, 330,000. Okay. Do you know how many illegal alien children are the population of that is, the percentage? And I said, I'm going to guess and say about 10, 15%. And she says, no, it's 48%. That's what I did, Clay. I did like, you can see me on camera, I went like,
48%.
What? And I had to admit, I said, I am grossly ignorant on this, and I'm rarely shocked, but what did you just say? Did you just say 48%? And she says, yes. And she said, and here's where the dirty, dirty secret comes out. She says they don't speak English, and yet their test scores are higher than the black students.
What?
And that's what I said. What? Well, how's that possible? And she says, because they've diverted all of the money to the migrant children. English as a second language, tutors, after school care, early morning care. So they have taken the black residents of Chicago, thrown them away, taken the black students in Chicago where they are below, they're in the teens in proficiency. Not like they're almost there passing They're 68%. We're getting to that 70. They're in the teens because there's no money for them. They have diverted all of their resources to foreign nationals.
So this idea of being replaced is absolutely the case. We know that this is a talking point of the left that says this is xenophobia, this is garbage. People on the right say that you're being replaced. This is, of course, this is propaganda, but it is happening.
It is not propaganda. I witnessed it. I saw it. I spoke to the people that are being replaced.
Right.
I had this discussion. It was very uncomfortable for this one moment. All of these men, it didn't matter. We had Tyrone Muhammad, 21 years in prison for murder, doing incredible work in the community. Another man out of murder for 26 years. Gang members that are murderers. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm going to tell you something, and it's going to really make you mad, and it's coming from a white man from the outside, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. You are talking in future tense. We are going to be replaced. I said, do you understand that you have been replaced? And you should have seen, not because they're ignorant or they're stupid, because that's definitely not what these men are. They're very intelligent men, very God-driven, but they're in the battle. And when you're in a battle, sometimes you can't see the forest from the trees. You just can't.
Yeah.
And I said, it almost as if a light bulb went off. And you should see the emotion went from shock to dismay to anger. And then they all said, no, you're right. You're right. This is present tense. I said, of course it is, guys. You are not being removed from your residence. You have been removed. You're telling me you have been removed. You don't know where to live. Where do I go? So that was a shock to my system. And that's when I'd absolutely know. Ryan and I would have conversations constantly all through the weeks before we went on our next trip. Dude, this documentary is nothing what you and I decided back in March. Holy smokes.
Best laid plans, right? It all falls apart once you actually hit the battlefield and you start to go then to Philadelphia, New York, you're across the country, Arizona, and then in Colorado. And one big piece of this story, of course, has been the child trafficking.
My point is, you are not safe. You think you're safe. You're lied to. You're lied to. We just had an attempt on President Trump's life. He's not safe. He has in an event, I would say, I don't know for sure, but I'm just guessing, uniformed and ununiformed, 200, 300, 400 law enforcement officers, state, local, and feds and the Secret Service. And you'd think he would be safe. There are 12 million illegal aliens that have been arrested and released. There are 30 million by the time Joe Biden has finished his term. And before he came in, there was 22 million. There are over 50 million illegal aliens in the United States of America. 60 to 70% of them are single adult military-age men from every nation that hates us. And it's happening to you. It's happening to your community. Let me give you one example that just happened, that just came on the radar today. As you and I, we talk about this. We go to New York, go to Chicago. We go to these major places. And of course, that's the metropolitan. We're going to jam all the illegal aliens we can in those cities. And everyone goes, thank God I don't live there. Right. Thank God I live in Ohio. Okay, Ohio, let's talk about you. Springfield, Ohio, 58,000 residents. They have over 20,000 Haitians in their city right now. That means they have 40% of their population are illegal alien Haitians. They say they can't handle it. Really? I'm shocked that you're just using those terms.
Right.
Crime skyrocketed. Homelessness everywhere. Schools, hospitals, everything's decay. America, as I predicted, and people say you're crazy, it'll never happen. Where do you think 50 million people are going to just be in the metropolitan areas? Or are they going to end up in middle America, in small town, rural America? They're all over. There's videos of people in Georgia, small rural towns with a church, a stoplight, and a gas station, driving by and filming. What in God's name is going on? There are military-age men, they're showing them, from Africa, roaming my streets. What happened? And these were black men filming. It wasn't a racist white guy going, oh, these Africans. This is a black resident of Georgia going, what in God's name is, where did they come from? This is what is happening in America, and that's what I'm hoping. Ryan and I have blood, sweat, and tears into this. We are hoping that this documentary, which I believe will be powerful.
Yeah.
It will not be. It's going to be, it's not me talking for an hour and a half and then maybe some graphics. I know, because I've already seen what Ryan Matta has already done with his editing team. When he's done and you're done watching it for 90 minutes, Clayton, I believe you are going to feel as if you forgot to exhale.
Like I've done for the last hour and a half. Just sitting here now. It's so hard to digest, and it's such... You can't put it into words. And we need action. We need men. We need real men to step up and to make a change. And I just want to thank you and what you and Ryan are doing with this documentary. I hope that everyone pre-orders it. I hope everyone watches it. I hope everyone shares it. I hope we make a change in Washington. And I hope that whoever is president of the United States, if it is President Trump, that he has real men around him this time who will step up as an army to make a change, because we are losing our country. We are losing our culture. We are losing our people. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. The documentary comes out in the fall, but people can pre-order This Is Treason right now. We're going to have a link in the show description of today's video in this interview. So please, I just want to implore all of you guys, go there, pre-order the documentary. This is a grassroots effort. You don't have Rupert Murdoch money pouring in to make this happen. And in fact, probably they're trying to keep you quiet, to covering this story. Yes. And they're trying to stop you from covering the story. So hopefully our Redacted audience, if you've not already pre-ordered the documentary, please go there right now and pre-order the documentary. We'll have the link right here on the screen and in the description below. And we could talk about so many more pieces of this, JJ, but I want people to watch the documentary. We can talk about all the depths of the NGOs, and we could talk about the movement of these detention facilities, and we could talk more deeply about sex trafficking and how these communities are being ripped apart. But we'll leave that for the documentary so people can watch all of that. But I just want to say thank you to you, and thank you to Ryan for doing all this amazing work and being so open. And this is incredible work. This is... You guys are looking at a real man right here. I mean, this is the kind of work that we need in this country, and this is the kind of journalism we need in this country, and there's so few and far between. So thank you for what you're doing.
I appreciate your time, and your audience has been great. Our pre-sales are going skyrocketing. I know it's to do with Redacted audience, so I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, JJ. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Clayton.
It's an honor, and thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.